Test, test.
Test, test.
Here, this is a staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners, March 11, 2025. Before we go on to our speakers, let's introduce ourselves at the dais.
Christy Rachel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board. Stephanie Summerall Dumas, Commissioner.
Hamilton County Commissioner Alicia Reese.
Jeff Aludo, County Administrator.
Patrick Dressing, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney.
I'm Commissioner Denise Treehouse. Thank you all for being here. We've got three things on our agenda this morning. The first one is related to the dog warden, and Beth Ward is here. We're going to ask you to come forward. Thank you for bringing some of your team members with you. The reason that we wanted to bring this forward is because there has been a lot of conversation in the community related to dog attacks. There was a big spread in the Inquirer about this. We've had some incidents recently, some dog attacks in the community. And I think there has always been a great deal of confusion about what the dog warden can do, whose responsibility is to respond to these things, what the ORC allows you and doesn't allow you to do. Because some of these attacks that we've been made aware of were vicious attacks in this community, and people are suffering from their injuries, and it's become a real community concern. And this is not a new thing. I know that you're aware that this has been an ongoing situation in Hamilton County. I just got an email this morning from somebody in Price Hill that harkened back to an attack that happened a few years ago there. We've recently had an attack in Coleraine Township, and so we wanted to make sure that there's a common understanding of what the response is, what the response should be as we think through these issues, and if there's any action that the Board of County Commissioners could or would want to take in response to what we hear from you, Beth, as the dog warden. So before I get to that, I don't know if the commissioners have any comments related to that, or if we want to go straight to the dog warden and then have questions.
Fine.
I had some.
Sorry?
I said yes, I had some.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur with that, but I am very interested because we're going into the summer months. We're seeing this occur too much. The street that I live on, I remember moving on that street years ago, and they said, "Oh my God, that's the street that the pit bull came after a senior citizen that was on their run." Then we hear about the little girl, what happened with them. So we certainly want to be very strong in having safety for the citizens and residents, and of course dogs that are doing the right thing. But if we've got some vicious ones in our community, when people are going to be jogging, going to be walking, more outdoor activity, there has to be some type of strong message and strong penalty if that occurs. We don't want people afraid where they can't even be in their own house, in their own yard, without having this. And we see more, I've seen more and more without the leashes. I've seen more and more just running around, and we've got to get some kind of control over it. So I'm glad that you're here with the expertise. I also had asked when we had the issue in Lincoln Heights, the neo-Nazis, there was one of them who had come in from Tennessee, and they left their dog in the car. And they were from out of town, and I believe the windows were up. They said, "I got to go get my dog." And we know who they are because they did file a police report. But I had asked for you to get involved as well to look at what laws were broken, because we don't want people coming from Tennessee also coming and breaking the law, and as it relates to that. So I'm glad to see that you're here, interested in the update, but I think we got to have a strong message that Hamilton County, we want you to be safe, and that includes being safe from vicious attacks like this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
So I'm Beth Ward, and I am the Chief Dog Warden for Hamilton County, and I've brought with me our interim field supervisor, Deputy Pardue, who has taken a lead on the most recent incident. So we're here to help answer any questions that you might have to the best of our ability, and also to hear the issues and concerns so that we can kind of gather everything, put things together, and even potentially come back with additional thoughts and plans moving forward. Because as you all have already identified, our primary goal is the safety of people and animals in our community. And I want you to recognize that there are dog bites that happen all throughout the state of Ohio. In 2023, there was about 17,000 dog bites that occurred in the state. And according to Ohio Revised Code, which is the code that our officers follow and the police officers in our county follow to be able to support the laws, anyone with knowledge of any dog bite incident has to report it to the local health commissioner or animal control authority. That doesn't mean that all dog bites are reported, but many of them are, whether it comes from the victims themselves or somebody in the neighborhood or a health official. Those bites are reported to us. At that particular time, our officers take the call and they begin an investigation into the dog bite. They go out, they speak to the victim, they speak to the dog owner, they speak to any witnesses that are in the area, and make determinations on next steps in regards to that case. And I'll allow Deputy Pardue to go into more specific examples, especially as it relates to this case. But we want to recognize that, it's the primary reason that people are required to report dog bites is because of rabies. However, an underlying and really primary reason is so that we can be aware of possibly dangerous animals in our community and be able to meet with owners, make sure that they understand what their requirements are as a dog owner, see what we can do to help ensure the safety of that community. We will make sure that the dogs are quarantined, as is identified in the administrative code, for 10 days, and we watch for illnesses. We partner with our local board of health teams to make sure that the animal is healthy, goes through the quarantine period. Now, after the quarantine period, it all depends on what the severity or level of the bite is. That dog could be deemed dangerous. It could be deemed vicious. And then we have to go through various court processes of citation, designation of dangerous or vicious, and then they go into a hearing where judges actually make the final decision. What our officers do, and again, Deputy Pardue can go into this a little bit in detail, is that we basically do the investigation, bring forward our investigation results, plus our recommendations that then get shared with a either hearing officer or a court to make a final determination on that particular animal. A dog that has bitten, the requirement is to be quarantined. They can be quarantined in someone's home. They can be quarantined at a vet hospital, a dog boarding facility, or a shelter. The situation is generally based on the safety implications. Now, again, we'll go into this in detail on this particular case, but that's one of the things our officers will evaluate is what is the safety? Can these people adequately quarantine an animal in their home without risk of that animal getting loose again? And so, again, our focus is safety, not just for the victim and the family, but for the entire community. We also look at any past history of bites or reports of running at large to play into our decision as how the animal can or should be quarantined. A dangerous dog is designated as a dog that without provocation has done any of the following: caused injury other than killing or serious injury to any person, killed another dog, or been the subject of a third or subsequent violation of Division of 955.22 of the Revised Code. I'm not going to bore everybody going through all the Revised Code issues, but that's one of the things we're going to look at as we go through and collect information from a bite report. Does this particular incident fall into the category of a dangerous dog? A vicious dog is the same categories as a dangerous dog, but it is a dog that without provocation has killed or caused serious injury to any person. So dangerous is listed as any injury, and vicious goes down the road of serious injury. So what happens is that this is a law that's in the ORC. It's not a law that just dog wardens can enforce. This is enforceable by any local police officer, sheriff's department, to be able to enforce these laws, just as we do. And oftentimes, especially the city of Cincinnati, they're the first ones on the scene. They might be the ones to make take all the bite report, do all the designation. This happens in other townships throughout our county. Now, as we go through and we see the result of our investigation, we will provide notice whether the dog is deemed as dangerous or vicious. And then if the dog owner or harbor or keeper disagrees with the designation, they can appeal the designation. So the hearing is held, and the person who designated the dog, so one of our dog wardens as an example, we have the burden of proof that the dog is dangerous or vicious. Now the judge who goes and hears the case, they make the determination of the next steps with that animal. It could be a multitude of things. It could range from the dog or dogs will be returned to the owner. There's no limitations placed on them. It could be that the dog is deemed as dangerous or vicious, and then those limitations as set forth by the Ohio Revised Code are then implemented onto that family to be able to house and care for that animal for the life of the animal. This is a lifetime designation. And then if the owner, harbor, or keeper disagrees with what the judge, and the judge can also, make a determination that the dog may be euthanized. If the owner, keeper, or harbor then disagrees with that, they can appeal that decision. We can also appeal it. So let's say if something was to happen and based on the judge's outcome, we're like, they must have missed some key points and this animal is truly vicious in our community, we could actually appeal that decision. If they decided that the animal was not indeed vicious and opted to return that animal to the community, we could actually appeal that hearing as well. So at this time, I thought you have any questions? Okay.
I think we're going to hear from the.
Yeah, what I was going to do is ask Deputy Pardue to kind of highlight the steps that were taken with this particular case in question. Yeah.
I'd like to ask her a question
Sure.
before. Okay. I want to make sure I'm correct in this. So the ORC has two categories, dangerous and vicious. Are there any other categories?
Yes, ma'am, there is. I just didn't bring it to light because it's not in the same category. So it's nuisance.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said that in order to be deemed vicious, you have to go to court for that purpose.
That's correct.
And how long does that normally take to get to court to claim it as vicious?
So generally less than about 10 days. It all depends on the court calendar and the date that the incident occurred.
Okay. And just specifically the incident in Coleraine, what was that dog deemed?
Vicious. And there's two dogs.
Okay. So are you in the process of going to court, or you already went to court because you resisted? You have to go to court to claim vicious.
That's correct. So we've already designated the dogs as vicious. Mm-hmm. We have also issued citations around failure to confine, failure to license, failure to display a license, and we provided the designation of vicious. And all the documents have been submitted to court, and we do have a court date.
That's all I had. Mm-hmm.
Please come forward and give us some details about the Coleraine incident.
I'm Deputy Pardue. I'm taking the lead on the Coleraine dog bite that has recently occurred last Friday. So from the start of everything, I was not originally on scene. I had to come in Saturday, heard about the dog bite, and was going through everything. And I went out to touch base with the neighborhood community that night and spoke to the victim once she returned home from the hospital. I had talked to her, heard their concerns and everything that was going on. I had touched base with the dog owners to re-verify that the original assumption that they were safe to keep the dogs there, that they were properly being quarantined, that it was safe for those dogs to be quarantined in the residence, and that they have met all the guidelines with having a back fenced-in yard. The dogs are only brought out one at a time on leash to use the bathroom by one person, and then they are kept back inside in the lower level of the house, so they have no way of getting out by accident or anything. They're completely separate from the exits of the house. I went through and I've talked to multiple neighbors in the neighborhood as well. One that was directly across from where the incident took place and one on a corner. And based on everything that was seen, it was deemed that the dogs were to be deemed vicious. The citations were issued and everything was processed to court for the judge to hear and to give the final ruling if he's deeming them vicious or not. So, and to touch base on that, so when we write our citations and are saying like we deem this dog vicious or dangerous, that is just our professional opinion going to the judge. So from that day, they're not deemed vicious until the judge gives the final ruling, because the judge could overturn anything we see or say based on our investigation. So everything's been fully documented, submitted fully to the courts for the judge to review on the upcoming court date.
Okay, thank you. And so I got just a couple questions myself. So you've talked to the community. I think we've all been, I will speak for myself. I've been in situations where there have been dogs off leash running around in a park, and I'm out for a walk, and it's scary. Mm-hmm. And particularly certain breeds of dogs are running around, and you don't know what might happen. Because that dog is off leash running around, and so this situation, there were two loose dogs. They were running around the neighborhood, from what I understand, and someone got out and decided to try to get them back to their homes, right? And so that's my understanding of what transpired. So my question is, we've got these dogs out. They created, they were part of an attack that sent somebody to the hospital. So clearly, vicious dogs, from my lay opinion. So the procedure then is to respond to the situation, make sure the person and anybody else is safe, and then deal with the dogs. And so tell me the rationale behind having the dogs then return to the home from which they got out to begin with, and quarantine for 10 days in that home. It perplexes me that we wouldn't say, instead of that, we're taking these dogs into custody. We've got a facility that can house dogs, and we're going to make sure that those dogs are not going to harm anybody else during this time period where you're making some determinations and you're going to a judge. Why is it the ORC that prescribes that, or is that a judgment call of the dog warden?
So it's a multitude of things. It's the ORC, it's the administrative code that is directly related to quarantines. So the quarantines, it lists that it may be quarantined with the family. It may be quarantined with a kennel or a vet or a shelter. It's not it must be based on this level, right? So there is some discretion that's there. And as we mentioned before, there have been cases where we've known that animal or those animals are not able to be safely confined and quarantined in a home. And so we will impound them, right? Because maybe the victim, the dog owners are senior and they can't adequately control the dog. Maybe they don't have a fenced-in backyard. Maybe dogs have had repetitive issues of being at large. Maybe they have a prior incident. Maybe they've the family themselves has expressed that they're fearful of the dogs, right? So at that time, we may make the determination. If they can't adequately quarantine them at home and we don't feel that it's safe, we will impound them. There's no doubt or question in that. We do that all the time. In this particular instance, we were able to talk with the owners. The owners wanted to be able to quarantine them at home. We were able to determine that they could safely do that. We were able to determine that there was no prior histories, no prior calls of incidents or concerns of the dog being at large. No one that had said that they were at large. Definitely the community is upset. Definitely the community is afraid because of an incident that happened on their street. I understand that. But we did not have a legal reason to impound those dogs. Now, we offered to take the dogs for the owners under the quarantine period, but they have not agreed to that at this time. They want to have those dogs in their home until they're making arrangements to have the dogs euthanized at the end of the quarantine period. They've had the dogs for 3 years. They've had them since they were puppies. And again, we've had reports that these dogs have been in the neighborhood since July of 2024 and actually been in the backyard with neighborhood kids swimming, playing in their pool, doing all kinds of things. No reports of any other incidents in regards to these two dogs. So we took everything into account and made a determination that it would be safe for them to be quarantined in that home.
Okay, thank you. One more, much more technical question. Why is the quarantine period 10 days as opposed to any other length of time?
Well, that's actually a state and across the United States, that's the quarantine period for rabies, because it's been determined over the course of hundreds of years probably that it takes that amount of time for the rabies symptoms to show. And if that animal becomes ill and or dies in that 10 days, then the health department would make a determination on next steps for us.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Samaradounis.
Thank you so much for the additional information. And I don't want to make an assumption, but I've always heard that once a dog has a pattern of viciousness, that might occur again. In your professional opinion, it just differs on the dog. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Every dog is an individual, and they're affected by their environment just like we're affected by their environment.
Are you concerned about the safety of the owner? Even though those are her dogs, these dogs have been vicious, so it's never happened. Are you concerned about the owner at all, having these two dogs in the house?
Again, the dogs are under quarantine in the house, so they're in crates, and they're only being taken out for bathroom breaks by the primary resident of the home, Mr. McCurdy.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much. I do have several questions. One is, you mentioned the state law, and I have it here, where it says Ohio law says that dogs who have bitten someone should be quarantined for at least 10 days. We understand that for rabies observation. Additionally, the owner of the dogs can be held liable if the animal causes any injuries or death. But let me go back to this part. You said it's subjective, whether you take the dog for quarantine, or the owner decides to self-quarantine. That's a subjective.
So it can be based on the circumstances. If we feel that those animals are not going to be appropriately quarantined for whatever reason it might be, then we can make the determination to have those animals impounded and held at the shelter for quarantine.
Okay. Let me go to the next question. Okay, if you feel that. Now, I'm hearing a lot regarding the dogs, but I'm concerned about the fact that the woman who was attacked said, "I almost died." And to me, is that taken into consideration as well? If we should take, not us, but if the dog warden should take the dogs into custody? Because I'm looking at it, if it wasn't a dog, say it was a human being that attacked a citizen, the citizen can't say, "Oh, we're gonna quarantine them without the little ankle bracelet and go through." They don't get to self-decide. If you attack a human attacks another human in Hamilton County, and the police show up, somebody's getting taken out and taken out of that community. So tell me why or how you said that you went and you looked and they're going to self-quarantine. So you decided, the dog warden decided that that is appropriate. But how do you monitor that? You just take a person's word for it, or is it is it a monitor on the vicious dogs?
No. So the way it's monitored is actually by physical visits to ensure, and it's not just our team. Like I said, we partner with the Board of Health. So the Board of Health also will go out and they inspect the home, ensure that the animals are healthy at the beginning of a quarantine period and also at the end of a quarantine period. They will ensure that the animals are also properly quarantined. But we have committed to, and we do this with every single bite situation, we ensure that they're always properly quarantined at the beginning of any quarantine. In this particular incident, because of the issues, because of the concerns, I have Deputy Pardue, who's been out in the community every single day and will continue through the quarantine period to do that, to ensure that, one, we have a presence, and two, that those animals are being properly quarantined.
Okay. The quarantine, you seem to focus a lot on the health side, and I think that's important. Rabies, we don't want that, and Commissioner Driehaus had talked about that. I've been out, and sometimes a dog, if they have their owner, they might be a certain way, but that doesn't mean that they like all people, right? And I've had concerns they don't have a leash and running up on me. I don't know the dog, you know what I'm saying? And it does get a bit intimidating as well. But what I'm hearing you talk about is kind of like what we were talking about when we had COVID. You gotta stay in so it don't spread. You're dealing with rabies. I'm dealing with safety. Where does the safety of the citizen who was attacked, who said, quote, "I almost died"?
Right.
What happens with that person?
So the quarantine also addresses safety, any kind of safety issue, because the animal is contained. The animal is not living its normal life. It's not outside. It's not being let out into a backyard without somebody present. It's not being let out, period. It's being walked on a leash out into a locked, fenced backyard. And so all of those things are taken into account. But the quarantine is not, by state law, created for safety, but we utilize it for safety. It also, like I said, if we had a person that we did not feel that they could safely quarantine that animal at home, we would either give them an option to quarantine it at their vet hospital, or we would impound that animal and quarantine it at the shelter, where we could then guarantee that we know that animal will not get loose. In this particular situation, again, we've gone over it with the owner, we've witnessed it, we've checked it each and every day to ensure that the animals are being held as required by law for the quarantine period, and we'll continue to do so all the way through this quarantine period.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because even with humans, a citizen gets attacked, if the person is let back to the neighborhood, they have some kind of device on them. Is there anything, device? I understand you'll come, say you come by at 2 o'clock, you're not there 24 hours.
That's correct.
And the dogs that are vicious were already with the owners before. You see what I'm saying? So we wouldn't have this situation, obviously, if they were maybe on a leash or what have you. Where is the 24-hour guarantee for the residents who are fearful right now? You might come at 2 today. You might, right now you're here, so you're not at their house looking at what's going on.
Correct.
Is there a device? I'm just thinking, I don't know if you've been in other areas. I don't know if there's a device when they're in the quarantine to make sure that 24 hours, because if you're a human being, they're 24 hours, they got a monitor on you. And you can't do that. You can't go to the victim, or you can't go here. Is there anything like that?
There are tracking devices that people will put onto dogs' collars, et cetera, similar to an ankle bracelet, what you're talking about, that are used for GSP tracking for a lost dog. We could look into adding that into a requirement. That'd be an additional thing that we could consider. But again, if my dog's wearing that collar, I could easily take it off and hand it to Deputy Pardue, and he's staying here, but I leave, right? So there's all these things that we'd have to go into play, and that kind of goes back to, as I stated at the beginning, I think one of the main things for us to do here is to hear the issues, hear the concerns, kind of look at it, sit down with Jeff and John and look at it from a county point of view. What can we do differently or the same to be able to continue to ensure a safe community for Hamilton County residents. I mean, I know we're focusing on this case. I want to underline, as you all have already stated, we have an issue in Hamilton County with dogs out running at large, okay? There's a lot of reasons around that. A lot of it, some of it could be addressed by, support services that are given. Some of it could be addressed by education. Some of it could be addressed by changing code requirements so people can have 6-foot fences. Because a lot of this is because many people don't have fences in their yards, so they just open the door up and let, Spot run out to use the restroom, and they wander around the neighborhood for, hours sometimes. And that might be when you see a dog, you're out on a walk. It's really from Mrs. Smith's house down the street, and she just opened up the back door and let them out to go to the restroom. So how do we address that as a county? What resources can we do? What things can we modify to be able to improve the care of animals and provide services to pet owners to help reduce the number of loose dogs in our community? Like I said, this is unfortunately a truly unfortunate event. The thing I want to take from it is, what do we learn from it, and how do we make things better moving forward?
Yeah. No, I agree, but I want to stay on these cases.
Yes.
Because we've got a little girl at 3 years old that died. That was December 27th, 2024, I believe. I know that the father was charged, right? I don't know whatever happened to the dog.
The dogs that were involved were euthanized
They were
at the
euthanized,
owner's request.
At the coroner's request, okay. Did that happen, like how long did that take? Did that happen right after the little girl died, or is it?
So is my understanding, it was not our case, but it's my understanding that the owner made the request soon after the incident occurred, but it wasn't completed until after all parties had had an opportunity to review the case and it had been heard by the grand jury, and then we were given permission to move forward with euthanasia.
Gotcha. I guess my question is, what is the response time on vicious dogs? Because we seem to have a longer time on vicious dogs than we do on a human being that commits a crime, if you will.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of understand what that process is. I would say, I understand what you're saying. They might can remove the collar. I'm not saying the collar. They could remove the ankle bracelet. We got to figure out something that makes the community feel more safe. And we're starting to see more of these. I understand the education. I don't want it to be economical. I don't want it to be based on your finances. If you got a lot of finances, you're okay. If you don't have a lot of finances, then you don't have as many rights. But what was disturbing to me, I'll just be honest with you, is obviously it was disturbing to hear what happened. But then when we've got a whole township on their own stationery, Colerain Township, Ohio, to send this with the trustees' names on it, as well as the administrator, sends a letter to all of us, and I believe the administrator as well, and you as well, where it says our residents deserve to feel safe in their homes and to be able to take a walk in their neighborhood without fear of being viciously attacked. I'm sure they didn't write this loosely. Colerain Township condemns, is what they said, the inaction of the Hamilton County Dog Warden and their decision to allow dogs that ruthlessly mauled one of our residents to remain in the neighborhood. They don't want it in the neighborhood. The woman that was attacked is going to need several surgeries and will face a long road to recovery from her wounds. She also has several young children. There are also many other children who live in this neighborhood. By choosing to allow these dogs to remain behind, the dog warden and their staff have chosen to put the lives and safety of Colerain Township residents at extreme risk. The dog warden staff cited to our officers that they felt that the dogs were, quote, too vicious to take in. So instead, they left them behind. The dog warden knowingly chose to leave a vicious animal in our neighborhood. I hope the county commissioners take a hard look at the policies, training, and resources available to the dog warden. If the dog warden is not equipped to deal with dangerous animals, then the dog warden is neglecting its duties. Our expectation is that after a thorough review, the county will provide an update to our residents on the actions they will take to ensure dangerous animals are not left in the community. Our hope is that they will reach out directly to the individuals who were affected to explain why their children were left exposed to further risk and harm. And then they go on to say, state law is very clear. It is the responsibility of the county to control dangerous animals in the townships. Our residents should not have their safety compromised because the county has ignored a core responsibility. I'd like to enter this into the record to the clerk, but I want to give you a chance to answer that to Colerain Township residents who are watching, because I know that you have some, maybe you may have some remedies or some, you may give your side, but I didn't want Colerain Township left out.
No, and I appreciate that. And as you already noted, I've been in contact with the administrator for Colerain Township. And the situation that was brought forward saying our officers refused to impound the animals because they were too aggressive, I want to note that with a heavy, bold underline. That is incorrect. Our officers will not shirk their duty. Our officers take an oath to protect this community just as our local police officers do. And I want to underline that all the codes in the ORC are enforceable by all law enforcement officers. Colerain was the first on scene. So our officer responded. There was one dog remaining outside of the gate. Our officer responded to be able to get that dog properly contained. The owners came back. They assisted in containing the second dog. Our officers did their due diligence in gathering information, ensuring that the animals were properly quarantined for the safety of the community. For the residents of Colerain Township, please recognize that we understand your issues, we understand your concerns, but we also want you to understand that we took steps to ensure your community's safety. These dogs have no prior histories. These dogs were not known for any aggressive or running at large behaviors prior to this incident. This is an exceptional incident. This is not something that happens every single day. The owners have been extremely compliant. They have followed the requirements that have been given to them as outlined by the ORC. They have been responsive to our officers. They've been responsive to Colerain officers. We have ensured that we've communicated with the victim and their families. We have ensured that we have talked to the neighbors. We have offered education to correct them. There was misinformation that was being shared out there in regards to Hamilton County, Indiana laws versus Hamilton County, Ohio. And there was a lot of extra drama brought into it as a result of that. Because a lot of people don't understand what the laws are. They don't understand what the requirements are. And please recognize that it is our utmost mission to ensure the safety of people in our communities. So if you are a Colerain resident, or you live on that street, or you're any resident in Hamilton County, and you have questions about what you're hearing and or any concerns that you have, please feel free to reach out. This is probably a crazy thing to do, but my cell phone number is 408-644-8617. Feel free to call me. We want a safe community for Hamilton County. Please recognize that that is our only purpose.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's why I wanted you to have an opportunity.
Thank you. Let me follow up on something you said earlier. So you're here, and we're grateful that you're here to clear the record so that we have a clear understanding of what happened, a common understanding, as we like to say. But you said something earlier. You do have some discretion in these situations as to whether or not the dog remains in the home or is taken. And I think some of the concern in the community is that the dogs were left at the home from whence they escaped or went roaming in the neighborhood. And so you said, and I appreciate this, that you're looking for ideas, guidance, as the dog warden. I mean, you're part of the Hamilton County team. I personally feel that while you have discretion through the ORC to have those dogs remain at home, I personally feel as though it would be safer for the community to have them in a facility where with all confidence that they are under quarantine, they are not getting out. I understand that they didn't have a history of being vicious, but they now have a history of being vicious. And so it seems to me, and I don't own a dog, but it seems to me that you do have the discretion to take them and put them in a facility where you've got some control over that 10 days. And so from my vantage point, if you're asking, and you kind of did, what do the county commissioners think? What do the residents think? That's what I think. Because you've got the discretion to do it, I would do it in a circumstance like this one, where the victim, had to be hospitalized and has all kinds of injuries. We have a situation where these dogs, with no debate, are vicious. They now have a history, and to take them, I think, would give the community the assurance that they're not going to get out in the next 10 days, they're not going to hurt anybody else, and we've got control over that. So that's my opinion in response to the situation. I understand you're allowed through the ORC to do something different. That would not have been my call had I been in that situation. Just to, again, not so much for the dogs. I get it about the dogs.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about the community and the response of the community and their safety as these dogs remain in the house in their neighborhood.
Understood. And I think that's something that Jeff and the prosecutor's office and we can look at, because if we were to impound a dog, it requires justification, right? And it could be that we would be required to file for a probable cause hearing. And at that time, a judge could determine that a probable cause was not upheld, and the dogs could be ordered back to the house. And it also recognized that as soon as the quarantine period is over, those animals would go back to that home. So
Understood.
And they wouldn't have any guidelines to be upheld by. But we will look at it, because I hear what the issues and concerns are, and I understand from the community the same. But I want to make sure that whatever practices or policies we put into effect, that it's something that can be legally upheld and utilized across our county and not specifically to one particular incident. So I just want to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's.
No, I understand, and I would say that should be a county policy throughout the entire county in a situation like this. Commissioner Dumas, I know you've got a question as well.
Well, I totally agree with President Driehaus that taking the dog out of the house, dogs out of the house would be, in my opinion, the most appropriate, because you have a whole community that's concerned, and we're dependent on this one owner to do what they need to do, even though you say, and I believe you, that you're going around to make sure it happens, but as was mentioned earlier, you're not there 24 hours a day. So I totally agree with the fact that you could at least try by taking them out and then seeing what the court says. So I'm on the same page. My other concern was about the rabies and the containment for the 10 days, and rabies is contagious. And so, matter of fact, it says highly contagious when I looked it up. And my concern is about, as we wait to see, what about the young lady who has been eaten up, chewed up, that has, I think I heard her say, she has triplets. So with her arms like that, who's going to take care of them? So I'm concerned about the children being there, and also concerned about compensation. I'm not talking about hospital bills right now, but just where is that at? I mean, who's taking care of her? Who's liable for that? How do you come to a conclusion on, because I'm sure she's gonna have to get family or somebody to take care of those young children and hospitalization. So who would be liable for that? The owner?
So that would all be determined by the courts after they've heard a preponderance of the evidence. But by state law, a dog owner is held liable for the actions of their dog. But whether the situation was provoked, unprovoked, whether the situation was they were lawfully on the property or not, there's all these kind of things that look at. But the compensation for something like that, that is something that is outlined through the ORC, but that is up to the courts to decide, and that's not something for me to weigh in on.
So currently she's on her own to make sure she's taken care of and the children are taken care of.
So, again, I can't speak to her personal situation, but I do know that when Deputy Pardue has been out there and talked to her, she does have other family there.
So if you were thinking that possibly the dogs may have rabies, when would it reveal itself? Like 3 days later or a week later?
It all depends on the situation. That's why the state requirements are a 10-day period.
Sure.
Because if in the 10 days, if those dogs had rabies, then they should be either showing signs or they would be deceased.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Sorry.
no, I'm done.
Yes, Commissioner Reese.
No.
I just wanted to follow up on that. I mean, I think we've all stated that we believe that when this happened, the dog should have been removed from the neighborhood. I'm reading stuff in here. Resident says, "I'm scared to death to go outside." We shouldn't have the residents got to stay inside because we didn't take the vicious dog out of the neighborhood. And I just don't know what more evidence we're gonna need. I mean, this person had to go to the hospital. They said they thought they were gonna die. We've already had a little girl at 3 years old who actually did die. So what does it take before the dog is taken out, the dog with an S, is taken out of the neighborhood? And then the Colerain Township Police Chief, I don't know, you might dispute this, but it says Colerain Police Chief said that the dogs will remain at the home, but they said will remain at the home for a quarantine period of 10 days, even after multiple attempts to get the Hamilton County dog warden to take the dogs away. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what the police chief is saying of Colerain Township. So we've got residents who are scared to come out the house. We've got a resident who has been attacked and had to go to the hospital. And as you've indicated, well, now that's not in the dog warden's hands. Now it's in the medical people's hands. It's in the court's hands, all of that. But when we had it in our hands, not us, but the dog warden's hands, I just feel like we let it slip through. I just want this to be taken very, very serious, because this is, you said, well, not this time, but next time. I mean, we've got people in jail right now that had no priors, but went out on a shooting spree and they're in jail because they did do something. So I just feel like you have a whole township that's in uproar, and obviously other parts of the county. And I feel like, to be honest, to the residents, what they would be feeling is that, oh man, we're getting all these excuses. It might not be your intention, but it comes off that way. Well, the state law has to do something. Well, so-and-so has to do. Oh, we're going to do education. We don't need no more education. We need these dogs that are vicious, that attacked a resident, that the township themselves are even saying they got to go. They have to go. Now, you have indicated that the owners, you said they was going to euthanize the dogs.
Right.
Okay, so what day? When is it? When are they going to do it?
They have, to the best of my knowledge, they've talked to their veterinarian, and it'll be done after the quarantine period is complete.
So that's my whole thing is a township has written us they represent the whole township. And we got an entire township that's in an uproar. And it just seems like the action based on the facts, what you saw, what the police chief saw, what we see with the woman that's been attacked, that we always talk about a thing called de-escalation. The best thing to do is to remove those dogs out of that community, because that would have de-escalated the situation in Colerain Township. And then you would have a chance to deal with the courts and all that stuff. You'd had a chance to check yourselves to make sure the rabies is not a situation. The warden would have taken custody and control at least for the 10 days. So I wanted to just highlight that. And as we, move forward, I think that's the direction that we need to go. I know you said we got to, we have to look at, but you look at stuff and it's given you, the state law has given you a case-by-case basis. It says it has to quarantine. It's up to you where they quarantine according to the state law. So it does give you some flexibility. But when you have an entire township that's willing to put it on there, usually you'll have the dog, the person that got attacked and maybe a dog owner that comes. Well, you got an entire township that says that they don't feel safe. So I just wanted to put that on the table. And I think today we're looking at, what could have been done, what should be done, and then can it still be done? Because people are still afraid to come out of their houses.
And again, I think what we will do is we'll take the feedback and communication from the commissioners, and we will meet with Jeff and the prosecutor's office to make a determination of what we can do next steps in this particular case, and any impact to that.
Commissioner, can I ask Mr. Ludo, can we get can we get a report in writing? I know you have your meetings and so forth, but if we can get something in writing that can go out to Colerain Township and us, and we kind of on the same page of knowing what you're going to be recommending.
Yeah, absolutely, Commissioner. So right after this incident, John and I spoke with Beth and Carolyn at Cincinnati Animal Cares and talked about exactly what the board is talking about right now, and that is doing a review of this case, a review of the procedures and the policies that control those procedures, and seeing if it makes sense to put something in place that alters that based upon what we saw from this incident. So I'm happy to report back in terms of the plan to do that to you, commissioners, and then secondly, the recommendations that we make, and we'll do that with all haste.
Yeah, it would be great to have a short-term and a long-term.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so it was something sooner than later, and then this idea of a long-term policy related to these kinds of situations for guidance for you. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dumas, did you have
I
something
think
else?
Jeff just said it. I was going to ask the question, what can we do? What can Hamilton County do for you? And also the ORC, what part of the ORC would you like to look at changing, adjusting, or whatever? And we can maybe have some of our lobbyists look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. I will say that the Ohio Chief Dog Wardens Association is actively working on legislation that could change some of these issues that we've been discussing today. And I know that they're preparing to issue a statement from the legislative committee and the association in regards to the recent report that came out in regards to dog bites in Ohio. I do serve on the legislative committee for the Ohio Chief Dog Wardens Association. And so I want to make changes. I think that there have been attempts to change law related around dogs. I think back in 2012 was the last major instance, and it was refused. And so our laws really haven't changed very much related to dogs in the ORC. So it is time for a change. Our communities have changed, and we need to address it. And what we also need the commissioner and the county support on, and I think we have a tremendous active community that is very supportive of the work that we're doing with animals in our community. And we want the community to, notify us when they see loose dogs, which most of them do on a regular basis. Let us know if there's a dog bite that happens so that we can investigate it. Attend classes, education that we can provide on being a responsible pet parent. Make sure your animals, your dogs are all registered as required by law, and it's the right thing to do to be able to help get them home faster. We want to see all of these things happen in our community, and the support that the commissioners have in supporting Cincinnati Animal Cares and our dog wardens team, it's irreplaceable, right? We need more officers to be out covering 52 square miles of county. We have budgeted 10. Currently, we have 7, and one of them is in training. One of them's on light duty, and then who you met last time, my lieutenant, he's out on medical leave. So the situation is that we need the help of the community to help keep our community safe. But we're here for you. We're here to support as best we can.
Can you give us one more thing, which is the number to call if someone does see something happening and they want to contact the dog warden, other than your cell phone?
Oh, yeah.
Which you gave everyone. I'm
Sorry, yeah.
I'm looking for the other number.
Everybody's got that.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know it right off the top of your head? Or actually, Megan probably does. Do you have it? 513. Yeah. Oh,
Could you repeat into the microphone, please?
It'll be 513-541-7387, and that'll go directly to Cincinnati Animal Cares Call Center.
Okay. And that's to report dogs roaming, any vicious...
Yeah, anything.
Okay. Just want to
within
make
the
sure
county
that
to
people
any animal, honestly. So.
Okay. All right. So we'll look forward to the
Thank
short-term,
you.
the long-term report. Thank you for coming in related to this and the broader issue. We appreciate it, and we stand at the ready to be helpful.
Thank you. We do appreciate that very much. You all have a great day.
Sure thing. Thank you. Okay. We have some individuals here for item number 3. So commissioners, with your deference, I'm going to move 3 up next so that we can get through that one and then move to the other item after. So this is the large event grant recommendations from the administration. See, now that I've done that, here comes Holly. So I moved the agenda items, Holly. So this is the grant. We've done this for a number of years. This is meant to provide financial support to events that happen in our community to help them expand, to help them bring better talent, all to provide more economic activity for the community, more room nights, more sales tax, all the things that we care about by way of our finances, and to help them succeed as they pursue these events. So Holly, could you go through the recommendations for us?
Absolutely. I think Christy will pull up the presentation. Commissioner Driehaus, as you mentioned, the board authorized $1.25 million in the 2020-25 budget for the large tourism grant program to generate economic impact throughout the county. This is the 4th year the board has authorized this program. So this year, we received 7 applications requesting more than $6 million in grant funds. But please note, that's a staggering number, I know, compared to $1.25 million, but 1 applicant applied for $3 million. So of the 7 applicants, 4 are recommended for funding and are noted on this slide here. You will see that none of the recommendations were for the full requested amount. Reductions were made given the competitive nature of the grant. So just quickly going through the recommendations, America's River Routes requested $950,000 and is recommended for $350,000. This is a large-scale event to be held on both sides of the river, October 8th through the 12th. This is the first time this event is being held and recommended for funding. The second recommendation is with the Santangelo Group for Cincinnati Music Fest. They requested $715,000 and recommended for $475,000. I think as everyone knows, Cincinnati Music Festival is held at the end of July, right along the riverfront at the banks. The third recommendation is for Pigworks for the Flying Pig Marathon. They requested $410,000. We are requesting $175,000 for this event that's held the first weekend in May. And the last recommendation, this is a first-time grant applicant, Lightship Foundation for Black Tech Week. They requested $276,500, recommended for $250,000. This event is held in mid-July in the Central Business District downtown. You'll see here 3 applicants are not recommended for funding, primarily because they did not provide any reasonable documentation on the economic impact. And that included call GTD Cares, which is a nonprofit out of Baltimore, requesting $3 million. Fallen Bikers and Riders requested $500,000, and 1301 Productions, which is the Dent Schoolhouse. Those three are not recommended for funding. So commissioners, out of the $6.3 million in request, we are recommending those 4 applications in the amount of $1.25, which is the budget that was authorized by the board in the 2025 budget.
Thank you very much. So as you reviewed these, I assume, I'm just going to ask the question though, you take into consideration the economic impact to the region related to these different events.
That's the only reason the county is allowed to spend money on these types of events is the economic impact. So we do look primarily based on the amount of economic impact, room nights, hotel room nights, spending by attendees, demonstration of financial need in the applicant are the primary factors.
Okay, thank you. One other question. So because these are all below what was requested, and I understand the rationale for that, we just didn't have enough money to fully fund. Have you circled back with these organizations to make sure that the events will continue forward even, obviously they've got different sources of funding, but if we are coming in obviously at a lower amount, will those events continue to take place?
I did reach out to River Roots because this is a first-time event, and they did say the event would still continue.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Commissioner Summer-Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to make a couple statements about the large tourism event grant. Due to the uncertainty of our economy now, when we pass this legislation on December 24 for the 25 budget year, we put in 1.25. We had no idea of where we would be in March, financially, the economy, the president, and where their goals and expectations are. My concern is to provide the basic financial support to our residents as needed. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future. We never do. As you were saying, we've done this for 4 years, which is great. We want to expand the impact on the community. I have no question that the ones that have been listed will continue to provide their activities, but maybe at a lower rate. Maybe they can't expand and do as much as they wanted to do. And I have written just a little statement that I want to put on record. Well, it's always on record, isn't it? I don't have the time. But the 2025 budget has been passed in 2024 with allocations for large events. We did not know that the landscape would change so dramatically. The large events will be entertaining and provide an economic impact. I believe the $1.25 million should be kept in the general budget for future use for essential services for our people. There are many community agencies, for example, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, Women Helping Women, that are already feeling the impact of the decrease of federal funding. They are supplemented by federal funding, and Hamilton County also receives an allotment of federal funding for many things. I know Jeff is going to give me the list of where we get our funds to supplement our different departments, and that's on the way, right, Jeff?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We don't know if the federal budget is going to pass. We don't know if there's going to be a recession. We don't know. So the fact that we have advance notice that we don't know, should we hold on to this $1.25 million for our people? And entertainment is good, economic impact is good, but I believe that these activities will continue on. Decisions should change when decisions change. Let me say that again, because I'm emotional about this. Decisions should change when decisions change. For instance, like the presidency, the possibility of the recession I said earlier, the lack of federal funding, and the world has changed dramatically. We need to be prepared. We have an opportunity to put this back into our coffers. Even if we had passed it earlier, we don't have to pass it now. We can't continue to do business as usual. Therefore, I will not support the allocation of $1.25 million from our general fund. I think all of these are great activities, great programs. They'll be great for the community, and they will continue on, but at a different level. So I will not be in support of this when we vote on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much. Let me just say that I do support the large event grants. I don't know if they'll be pulling the small event grants off the table as well, but I do support those if they keep it on the table. Let me just say that as a county, we make our money from property taxes, which I'm trying to reduce, but of course, the state has to make those final decisions. But that's why I fought for the 30% tax rollback. The second way we make our money is off of sales tax. And if we don't have people coming in buying anything, then that hurts us being able to fund any type of things that we like to do. The third thing that we bring our money in is hotel motel tax. And I don't see anybody saying, let's stop these projects that we are moving forward, because we understand that we need to be bringing in outside money to reduce the costs on local people. That's why even with the Bengals lease, I'm trying to reduce 94% on the local taxpayers. And try to bring up on the other side private money and private folks and NFL and state to put that up so that the local taxpayer doesn't have the burden. In order to do that, though, we have to bring in business and maintain and hold tight to the business we have. This grant is very important, though, to make sure that it really equals to room nights. Now, one of the things about the Cincinnati Music Festival is that weekend, we overcharge every person in a hotel. No other weekend in Hamilton County history do we do annually the overcharging of hotel room nights. I mean, I think Red Roof Inn probably is $500 a night. We overcharge and really don't give the best service to the people we overcharge. In that, it makes the music festival the largest economic annually impact with real numbers. I always ask Mr. Ludo to have Mr. Brugan give me how much money did we make. So if you're charging $500 and $600 a night and you're telling the people they must book a minimum of 2 nights, you must pay up front, that's a lot of money we've been bringing in for 50 plus years. 50 plus years. And you can Google and see what is the rate today. So when we go up, we get a percentage. So the higher the pay, that percentage goes up. And so we certainly, I don't want to overcharge, and I've said that before, we're gonna look into that more. We don't want to be overcharging people, but at the same time, we are bringing in money. Now, that does not include going to buy the outfits. That's sales tax. That does not include, they go and buy food, they're eating. That's a sales tax. That does not include, they're out there buying water bottle because it's super hot. There's a sales tax on that. And then the event, like I said, you got to have an outfit. So that's a charge on there. So at a time when our conventions are down because we don't have anywhere to put them, we want to definitely keep these big activities that bring people in so that we could take those dollars and spend. So I do support the large event. And this is not just large event. This is large tourism economic impact. And I want to make sure each applicant, though, is really bringing in these numbers. Because I come from tourism, and sometimes people come in and they say, we're going to get 500 rooms, and they didn't get but 2 rooms. We know that the music festival does because every room is sold out in downtown Cincinnati every single year. We know the music fest because the rates are the highest ever. So I want to make sure I know Flying Pig because they bring people internationally coming in, running in the race. So Flying Pig has a track record of that. I do have some questions on the river routes. Great concept. beautiful concept. But we had, I think, commissioners, we had approved, or at least some money was recommended, if you will, and it didn't get off the ground. And those dollars went back into the coffers, and they could have been utilized for some other events. So I guess my question is, I don't know if it's for you, Holly, will this event get off the ground this year?
Commissioner Reese, I did reach out to River Roots and ask that specific question. And they said with the funding we have, their intent is to still go on. And they are, I think, announcing the music acts in the next 30 days. So
What I want to make
What
sure
I know.
on any of them, I'd like to, if they don't go, Mr. Lute, I want some language, just like we do with the ARPA funds, where, because these, as Commissioner Driehaus brought out, you know, there was some higher requests, and of course, we couldn't do them because we were trying to, but if the money's not going to be utilized, there, you know, we should be able to do like the ARPA and make a decision what we'd like to do with those dollars, if we see it's not happening. That needs to be in the language, is what I'm saying.
in the agreement,
Well, the language we're gonna pass on Thursday, that if it's not used, just like we do with ARPA, if it looks like this is not gonna happen, it be brought back to us, and we can make a decision if we want to put it towards something else that is actually happening. We didn't have that in the language, because in their application, they list Santangelo Group as booking talent. And Mr. Santangelo is not booking talent, from what he told me. It's some company out of Atlanta, which someone told us. So we just need to, guess, my point is, if it doesn't look like it's gonna happen, I would like some wiggle room to bring it back to us prior to. So that's my other piece. The other thing that I want to highlight on I know with Black Tech Week, the city does give a lot of money to that as well. I'd like to see more of what are we doing on the synergy, and I'd like to look at the room nights before we get, because there was some discrepancy on rooms that were held versus rooms that were booked. I think it's a very good project, but I like it to tie into our small business initiatives that we're doing. I think that's the way, I think all these things should be a way to advertise and promote what Hamilton County is doing, because we're doing a lot with small business and tech, and maybe somehow we can make sure that our small businesses in Hamilton County somehow have a better connection to the Black Tech Week. I think is very important. Lastly, let me say that we also voted for $5 million. When we got our budget, we have a structurally balanced budget with a healthy reserve. Now, I understand that times are different and things are changing very quickly. But there's some things that we voted for that did not occur, that we have an interest fund, is what we learned in the last budget. We made some good money, not to say we're gonna always have this kind of money in interest, but I thought it was like 40 million maybe in interest funds that we got, right? My understanding is we found 5 million of it to put toward the women's soccer. We wanted to try to get women's soccer in Hamilton County. That did not happen. We did not get selected. So now that's another $5 million that we have not touched, that is in the coffers. And there may be others. I'd ask Mr. Ludo, not today, but in writing, to get us how much in the interest fund do we have available. I think we spent a few things. We have $2 million sitting for Sundance and waiting to hear about that. But the $5 million we had, we never did use because they did not get the soccer franchise. So that frees up some things. I'm not recommending to use that for this. I'm just saying that's some money that we also can add to our rainy day potential situation. And obviously, with what's going on in Washington, we've got to have some rainy day funds. But at the same time, we've got to keep making money. And I think that these events will bring us, they have a track record. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them have a track record of bringing in funds. So that's why I support this grant. I want to replace it with tourism economic development, large tourism economic development, because we're tying these things to room nights that bring in hotel tax, to sales tax that brings in tax that goes into our general funds so we can reinvest in the community. If we can drive those numbers up, that would allow us to have funds to be able to continue. But I do want to add, this will not, I don't want to support anything that will not stop in senior services, JFS. I want to make sure that this does not hurt those things. If you want to, Mr. Ludo, you would talk about that. Does this stop us from doing anything?
Well, the dollars that are appropriated were specified in the 25 budget for this purpose, so they're not conflicting with other things that are budgeted.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure of that, but I do want to get clarification from the Roots, because a lot of great ideas, but there were some things in the application that was a little different now, and I want to get the latest information. Thank you very much, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that the whole idea of the grant is to bring in revenue to the county to help us do what we do even better, right? Because we'll be increasing revenue. So that's the whole idea here. Some of them are well established, some of them are newer. We've had new ones in the past, but we're doing an analysis to see whether or not the investment made a difference. And the idea here is that if we can make an investment on behalf of the county, as you say, the city does similar things, the private sector does similar things, and collect those funds and have an event that brings economic development to our region, that's generally a good thing. So that's the intent, and then we've identified, and thank you, Holly, for your work identifying which ones fit the bill more than others. Commissioner Dumas, did you have another?
Yeah, I had another comment. And the majority, we've been doing this for 4 years, so how long are we going to continue to add on to these different events? And they've been established before we even started this. I think they'll be fine with or without the additional money. And also, it was brought up earlier about the small event grant. That was an initiative that I brought up. I'm certainly willing to stop that if we are willing to stop the large event grant, because as we were saying, and Jeff just indicated that everything has been funded from last year for seniors and whatever it might be, but we may get out of here today and look on the television and other stuff has been cut. So at the point that we have advance notice that things are being cut in the federal level, and we have the opportunity, no matter what we decided last year, we need to be proactive to make sure we have money in our coffers. And so just want to reiterate that if there's a decision by the board to not fund these large event grants, I don't want to be hypocritical and not say to do the same for the small event grants. Even though the small event grants are total $250,000, we're talking for the large event grant, $1.25 million that we could put in our coffers in our budget, our general fund for emergencies. And so that's where I am on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I say that I support this based on, I got to get the information.
Oh, yeah.
Too quick. I will support this. When I do the budget, and it's weird because county is different than any other budget I've ever been to. Usually when the budget is passed and everybody agrees because it's a give and take, some things, you don't get everything you want in a budget, so it's a give and take. And I have been working, and we'll work again, keep working on how we get, when we have the budget, that's the vote, because we do a lot of negotiation back and forth. We combing numbers, we're calculating numbers, we're doing a lot of things. And once I kind of say that this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going, unless there is, the market crash and those kind of things. But we do still have $5 million that we didn't use. We still have interest funds that we haven't utilized. And so I think we're in good shape to be prepared, possibly, can never be totally prepared. I supported both because I think the small event grants helped our smaller municipalities and those kind of things. So I definitely support that as well if it moves forward. I support this, but I do need, before I say yes completely, I need that information I need that language about if it doesn't happen. I need updated, because in the application, maybe they did have this group, but they don't have this group doing the booking of talent. I need those kind of things so that, just to button it up a little bit. And if those things are buttoned up, the Black Tech Week and how we connect with our small businesses, because it has to be an advantage for Hamilton County residents, et cetera, too. So, but I do agree that we have competition around us, and they're coming for us. Louisville, Indianapolis, and we have to make sure that we're bringing the business here to Hamilton County, to Cincinnati. And so that's why I do agree. I do think it's economic development. I do think it brings in money. I know for a fact from those hotel rates that they've been charging people that it does bring in money to us. And so I'm happy to support it, but with the caveat, if I get this information, so I can have that buttoned up before Thursday. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to make another comment. It's okay. I just don't want us to be stuck. I want us to be flexible as we look at the environment and what's going on, and you do the same thing over and over. That's insanity if you expect different results. So we're looking, we're already being told that things are changing. And so I just want us as a board to be flexible. I'd also like to ask Mr. Fogarty if he could come up from River Roots. And I did read your packet. It was a great packet. And so I was just also wanting to know about Santangelo and his role in River Roots, because he was in a big section of your book. So is he still part of that or not?
It's my understanding that they are still a part of it. They'll focus on production of the event as opposed to securing the national acts. We selected an Atlanta-based company because they have a stronger resume with respect to the securing national acts. And hopefully we'll be able to announce who those acts are sometime this spring. But the Santangelo Group, as I understand it, is still a partner in this event.
When you say you understand, aren't you in charge of River Roots?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm a co-chair, but I'm not sure where all the contracts stand.
Okay. You'd like to speak to it?
Please.
Thank you for your consideration and your questions. I'm Susan Fisher, the Executive Director. We have been in conversations with Santangelo. They gave us the budget for all the stages, which was in the submission. So we do expect them to be our partner as we go through the bidding process for all of the 8 stages and which ones will be produced. We were in original conversations with them about curating and lots of sort of conversations about how to get this off the ground. And we did make a decision to go with DMI out of Atlanta for 4 particular acts. The rest of the program is not handled by them.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Can I follow up with that question, since we're getting into the question?
So sure. We do have another presentation.
I want to make sure.
I think this is important.
Yeah, this is good. I'm glad she asked that question, because I don't know if they know they're involved, because they said that they hadn't heard from you since December, and they were shocked that they were in the presentation. So I'm not saying you have to answer that today, but they'll be here Thursday, you'll be here Thursday. I want to have an answer from them and you, because they had some concern that their name was utilized in a grant. And they said that, yes, they gave you, like a lot of people give you proposals, but they were not selected. They're not under contract. And then we read this, it looks like they are. So that's my point with River Roots. It's a lot of moving parts. It sounds like a great thing, but there's some things that I want to put on the table that I did put on the table. Number one, 250 years of celebrating America is going to be very tough, particularly right now. I don't want this to become the place where it becomes the protest area. People are not happy with what's going on right now. Most people, they're losing their jobs, they're losing this, they're losing that. And I understand the clerk is even having a hard time getting people want to even serve on it. But before we had that situation, people that looked like me, it was not a crystal ball for 250 years. So my point is, I want that to be noted. I want it, because if we both move forward with it, it makes it look like we celebrating all of this, and it might not be the celebration. So I want that to be under consideration. And then number two, there's a lot of name dropping. We got this, we got that. And then when you talk to the people, they say, yes, we talked to somebody, but we ain't heard nothing back. So I want by Thursday, I'm not telling you to go with Santangelo or whoever you go with, but whatever's in this document, they felt like you're using their stuff and they ain't really with you. You get what I'm saying? And so that gets people, and it makes us think, oh man, Santangelo, they got their own thing and they getting a grant, then they over here. And if that's not true, we need to know, because I understood that an Atlanta company, you decided to go with them, but I'm not here to ask you to answer that today, but get with Holly, because you got a grant that has a company's information and names in it, is on public record, and if they not the people, then that makes us vote on something that's faulty. So I just want you to get that under control and let us know some kind of clarity you can get with Holly so that we have, at least for me, I can have a clear understanding.
Understood. And that was our bid for production, and procurement, and talent curation are two different things. So I understand if there was confusion there, and we will clarify. Okay. And they are definitely on our list for production.
Oh, let them know, because they didn't know. Thank you.
Yes, understood. Thank
Can
you.
I just be clear? This is a matter of clarity. We are not trying to favor anyone over anyone else.
Yes.
I just want to
Correct.
be real clear on this because where there's some lines here. So this information will provide clarity to the board before we vote on the item.
Right, clarity. I'm not telling you to go with anybody. I'm
I
just going by what you wrote in here.
Okay.
Understood.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Holly. We're going to move on to the 911 final plan. We've got Andy Knapp here, the director of Hamilton County Communications Center. Hello, Andy.
Good morning, commissioners. This presentation will actually be kind of a bringing you up to speed on where the 911 system and the 911 platform is over a period of many, many years. I do have a presentation that I'd like to and I've shared it with you in advance, and I'll share it with you again here today. This is relative to some changes that were made to the Ohio Revised Code back in 2023 that we continue to react to and try to make sure that we are staying on top of where we need to be with regards to Ohio and the 911 industry. So with the changes, the Ohio Revised Code Section 128, it now requires the annual convenience of a planning committee. This planning committee historically had been quite political in nature, and as such, it was very difficult to call together and very rarely met after its initial meetings. So the last planning committee was actually formed in November of 1985. And although there had been some technical advisory committees, and also we had a 911 review committee that would meet with regular meetings, maybe not necessarily annually, but they would regularly meet. The last time the final plan itself that was adopted was when it was adopted was in '86 and has largely remained unchanged since then. Obviously, the 911 system has continued to make changes, and we've made 1, 2, maybe 3 amendments to that final plan from '86 to keep in touch with where times are. However, when it was first designed, the original PSAP, so if I go to the next slide, I'm sorry. Oh, I have the clicker. I have the power. Wow. I'm sorry, my first time doing that. One of the things I'd like to note that here in Hamilton County, one of the things we always have been is fiscally responsible. And I'll bring specific evidence of that over a period of since 1985, for example. So originally when the PSAPs were designed, and it's hard to believe that 911 hasn't been there forever. 911 really went live in Hamilton County in 1988. It's relatively youthful, at least I think it's youthful. And the original 4 public safety answering points, or PSAPs, were Hamilton County, City of Cincinnati, City of Norwood, and Springfield Township. And at that time, there were 8 associate PSAPs. These were public safety answering points that basically one of the main centers answered the call and then sent the telephone call to that local jurisdiction for its own dispatch. The 911 equipment, even back in the day and now, continues to be very, very expensive. It's high tech, it's high speed, it's high uptime, and so that equates into high dollars, if you will. And so we try to limit that. And even the state legislators try to limit that at a certain point in time so that counties only had a minimal number of the PSAPs because of the cost of the technology. Now, here we are in 2025, and I can tell you that we have 3 PSAPs. So we've reduced it from where we initially started at, and we only have 3 associate PSAPs. So what happens is in the Hamilton County, we answer the 911 traffic for basically everyone in the county. We then, for Amberley Village, Indian Hill, and Deer Park, we transfer that call out to their 10-digit calling line. So there's no data that goes with that call. It's just basically they get the voice call. We stay on the line. If there's any change in location or anything they need technically wise, we would handle that for them. City of Cincinnati handles the City of Cincinnati. A relatively new addition, although they've been defined as a PSAP since the original plan, is the University of Cincinnati. University of Cincinnati has elected to be designated as a PSAP for the purposes of our final plan. The implication of that is that they will adhere to the state of Ohio PSAP operational rules, and so they've accepted that, and they will move forward with that. They only receive the calls for inside their campus. Their phone systems have been structured so that when you dial 911 within the campus, it goes to the campus police dispatch. The fire and EMS dispatch is still done by the City of Cincinnati in most of their locations. Obviously, the campus in Blue Ash, we handle the fire and EMS for that campus. But nonetheless, UC gets their calls, as a side. They're what's called a remote site off of the City of Cincinnati 911 platform. That is also important because they share the computer-aided dispatch, so the computer system that the dispatchers use, they share that with the City of Cincinnati. So they are a very strong partner with the City of Cincinnati for obvious reason, and it works well for them. Amberley Village, Indian Hill, and Deer Park, they do their own police dispatch. We handle their fire and EMS. You'll see a note that the City of Loveland and Sims Township have identified themselves as part of the Claremont County 911 final plan. And they do that because of the relationship they have with their Northeast Communications Center, which handles the traffic for City of Loveland and Sims Township. City of Loveland actually has property that lies within all 3 counties. And so in this scenario, they've elected to use the 911 platform through Claremont County. So with the amendment that happened in late 2023, we had to reform the 911 committee. And the ORC defines specifically what the minimum membership is on that committee. And these are the folks that meet that minimum membership requirement. City of Cincinnati is the largest municipality. Green Township has the largest township by population. Then they have the Trustees Association, a municipal league, and an elected official. Sheriff McGuffey has agreed to do this and makes logical sense as an elected official, as she represents then public safety, if you will. So I will note that if you have the chance to encounter him, Mr. Lee Zerwanka of Blue Ash has been an invaluable member to us for many, many years. Actually, in my role, about 9 years, I've worked with Lee, and I know he predates me even in working with the county specifically and as it relates to 911 traffic. He also was generous enough to agree when I heard there was a position available at the state level on the State of Ohio 911 Steering Committee, which if you look at that membership is largely made up of folks in the Central Ohio and Northern Ohio region. I made a very quick phone call and advised Lee. I said, hey, there is a spot that's coming open. There is no Southwest Ohio representation. Would you be kind enough to volunteer your time to this committee? And so now we have representation at the state level through Mr. Lee Zerwanka. So if you have the chance to thank him, I would greatly appreciate it. He does phenomenal work for us and really keeps us in that State of Ohio spotlight. The 911 Planning Committee, then, you may think to yourself as the political folks may not necessarily be as technically competent with the technology we have. They might not be as intimately familiar with the public safety inner workings of police, fire, and EMS responses. So anytime the Planning Committee has some type of a question about 911 operation, they can convene this technical committee. In general, the technical committee is what has met regularly over the decades that 911 has been Hamilton County, and this will be in our final plan. These are the folks that are represented in that technical committee. A new requirement from the ORC was that we now have to file a notice to all municipalities by the 1st of March. And the interesting thing is, this is something that had been going to the state of Ohio alone, in that when we receive the state 911 government assistance fund monies, we have to report to them, what did you spend the money on? Do you continue to have a fund balance? Where's the money going? And we have a very narrow focus. And in the county, we have a restricted fund budget that we utilize that money from. It can only be used for things within the communication center and related to the 911 system. So this is just a brief snippet of a report that went to the municipalities outlining this year's activities. They report these monies, and then they also contribute the report at the state level to the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC, who maintains a log of exactly what are telecommunications types of monies, how are they spent, and where are they going, to make sure that they're being spent appropriately. It's very low, and I wasn't completely prepared to talk budget today, but I'm happy to try to answer some questions if I can. But it's a very, very low percentage of our overall budget. The last time I looked at it, it was about a 4.5% to 5% of our budget actually comes from that state government assistance fund. So I'm sure you saw the recent communication from the CCAO that indicates we need to increase this. I'd be happy to elaborate on that a little further. Just know that it's a very, very small portion of our budget right now. As it relates to the final plan, however, to stay on focus with that, within 60 days of the plan being signed, and I anticipate that plan being signed by the end of this week, this Friday, we would need to act on that by resolution just to approve or disapprove of the plan. And this kind of gives you the outline of what are the next steps. In addition, if all of the entities, and ORC is a little bit repetitive in what the requirements are, and I just wanted to include that for your edification so that you saw where this is coming from. But it basically says the countywide is effective if all the following entities approve the plan in accordance with this section. And so I will be reaching out to the municipalities once we, and I'll be working through the prosecutor's office, once we have a final plan document. We're going to need to make this final plan available to all the municipalities we operate with, and they will have to approve or disapprove the plan. There's nothing, as I've given you a draft copy of the plan, and it's quite voluminous, so I don't want to go through it extensively. Probably the only area that I would assume you would have a question about outside of the technology would be the financing portion of it. We've elected in this to continue with the current philosophy of the wireless 911 funding that we receive from the state is distributed equally amongst the two PSAPs that take the calls from the general public, and that would be the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. We distribute that funding based on the total number of 911 calls. Stands to reason your operating levels, like your workload, if you will, can be directly correlated back to your 911 traffic that you take. For example, just for note here, last year between the city and the county, we handled 591,000 911 calls, just 911 traffic. So that's not the city's 311. That's not our non-emergency number. 591,000 phone calls were answered last year by both entities. So we take the percentage of how many the city answered, how many the county answered, and then with the funding that we get from the state of Ohio, we basically assess that percentage, and that's how it's distributed. And that's how we will continue to distribute that. Again, more information about how we will approve this. Just know that I will coordinate this and working with the prosecutor's office to make sure that it is handled. I think another question you may have is, what if a township does not approve of it? The reality is that if the as you can see on line 3, at least 60% of the county's population, or the plan's been approved by a municipal corporation that contains at least 60%, basically a very small municipality is not going to hold up the whole entire process, and we'll work through that. We have the ability to amend the plan, so if for some reason a municipality finds something that's not favorable, they can make that request to the planning committee, and then it would be up to them on how they act. That was the extent of my presentation relative to the final plan. Again, the goal is to have this final plan complete by this coming Friday, and then it will be with one of the agenda items with a board resolution. But I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. I just have one question. When you talked about the percentage between the city and the county, what is the percentage?
Generally 55% city and then 45% county, generally. It varies just a little bit year to year, but generally a 55-45 split.
Okay, and I thank you for noting that CCAO is advocating for more dollars from the state for this purpose. I know some of our state reps have offered amendments in the budget process, so thanks for bringing that too.
Really, and I appreciate that. It is. I would be happy to go into detail if you need more information about that. The key takeaway is the increase of that fee obviously relieves the burden on our general fund dollars from here. And as of right now, we're getting about $3.1 million countywide. So then we split that percentage with the city of Cincinnati. So as you can tell, it's a very, very small percentage, and we're ranked 41st in the United States as far as what is collected for 911 fees.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you for your presentation. I did read this whole thing, and so, but I just wanted to suggest that you put your name on here and how to contact you, because I know in the middle there's something mentions you for something, but if I immediately wanted to go to who's responsible, and also wonder who wrote this.
Yeah.
So just put your name on there. Yeah, I know how humble you are.
I certainly will. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
that.
lastly, I looked at the direct dispatch list, and I had just a question about Lincoln Heights. And Lincoln Heights EMS and fire is still listed, but it was my understanding that Woodline was handling those services.
You are correct. There's another typo that I have in there relative to Gulf Manor and who's handling Gulf Manors. So the draft copy you have will be updated before the final plan, but you are in fact correct.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese?
Thank you. I was actually going to bring that up. So I'm glad you're going to make those changes, and thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Very good. Well, we'll look forward to having the resolution in front of us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas? Yes. Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Thank you.